Yes, does the drama pass the Bechdel test?
Yes, it passes with flying colors. Several of our female characters engage with each other in this film. Zendaya's character Emma is constantly talking to people like Rachel, her best friend in me, the heroin smoking DJ, Pauline. Frances, played by Zoe Winters, our good sis from The
Yeah,
Materialist, who did a very good job.
a film that is less romantic than this one.
You know, our conclusion with that film was that it was a horror film masquerading as a rom-com.
Yeah.
She also interacts with Misha as well. So yeah, she talks to lots of women in this film, and they talk about anything but men. Like sometimes they'll talk about Charlie, but oftentimes it's about her, what's going on with her wedding, her choices, things like that. In fact, I had to think very carefully to confirm if two men ever speak about anything that's not a woman in this film, because the times men do speak in this film is stuff like when Robert Pattinson's character Charlie is speaking to Mamoudou Athie's character Mike, and it's almost always about Emma. And even
Hmm.
when he speaks, when Emma's dad speaks, I think he's almost exclusively speaking about her. So yeah, like this is not a film that is hesitant about focusing on people's conversations about women and not just men.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't have any issues with regards to how this film handles gender. Again, my only issue with this film is more so understanding the intersectionality of Emma's experiences, especially as a young black woman or young black girl in the United States. I think the film handles gender pretty well. We have a very complicated female character. She's surrounded by complicated female characters. We have Rachel, we have Misha, who's also a liar, by the way. You know, she pretends that she's gotten past cheating, but she was bent over that counter and waiting.
Misha is such a
Um,
mess.
I love her. I
I
love her
love her
character.
so much. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I think that also like the film does go out of its way to contemplate how Emma, as a girl, is able to come to the place of almost becoming a school shooter. So we have Emma's little shady rant about how, oh, it's not just boys that are school shooters, it's also girls. And, you know, I was happy with that. I just really longed for a similar treatment of the racial aspect.
I thought so too. Although I will add a note on how it handles female relationships in that it still does that A24 thing that
Mm,
we observe with materialists and with opus and a couple of it, which is that our female lead characters still have no sense of community or actual anything close to actual real serious bonds with other people in general, but especially women. Now, in the
mm-hmm.
case of this film, it is kind of the point. Like Emma was very isolated as a teenager. She was very lonely. She quite literally almost became a school shooter because of it. So like it's almost kind of justified, except part of the point of the film is that she
Exactly.
grew out of that so much so that everybody in her life was shocked when they found out about it. But like actually, the version of her we meet as an adult is still quite isolated from
Thank
community.
you. And the film doesn't get into it, which I find really, really jarring. How can we say that Emma changed because she found community, but somehow as an adult she has found herself once again very, very lonely, but we're supposed to believe that her mentality around how to respond to that has completely changed? Why?
Yeah, like the real community we see here is her white best friend who clearly hates her, and the white best friend's black man who I won't even speak on that dynamic that's going on there, but if you know, you know, who is clearly no real friend of hers.
Hmm.
Um, if in fact if you want to read the film literally, he was quite literally suggesting to her white partner that he would beat her up. I don't think
Hmm.
that's supposed to be read literally, but still, the
Hmm.
fact that she could even think that he would be saying that. And who else? We don't have any like distinctive members of attendees of the wedding that we know are
No.
Emma's friends. Misha is Charlie's co-worker, and we meet her dad. We don't really see properly what her dynamic with her dad is as an adult. And if I'm not mistaken, we don't know anything whatsoever about her white mother or her white family. So, what is the actual community that exists around her? So, once again, this trope continues to happen, and again, in isolation, in um, in a minority, it wouldn't be such a strange thing to me. But because it continues to be the majority of these kind of characters we see in these kind of films, especially when it comes to women, I'm like, there is something weird going on in the screenwriting because this is not representative of real life.
I agree. Clock it. No, it's so true.
And it's not just when men are writing, it happens as well when women are writing. But I do think Kristoffer Borgli can look at how he's handled women in this film broadly and be like, I've done a good job. He has, actually.
Hmm.
But, and like, be proud of himself. But like this whole idea of have you accurately demonstrated what a woman who has grown to find community is actually like in adulthood? No, and I actually don't think a certain kind of man will even understand that he has not done that in this film.
Hmm.
Think about the black or biracial women leading up to their wedding. Would the conversations they're having with other women only revolve around one female friend?
Unfortunately, there is a particular person who's coming to mind in this whole conversation about a biracial
No.
American woman marrying
Stop.
a British white man, and potential loneliness and not having people who are really like not really having community at her wedding, and people at the wedding, or people going to the wedding saying, oh yeah, I only met her recently. We're only basically saying they're only surface friends. And notably not having her family around.
D, I hope you're not suggesting a certain member of a royal family
That is exactly who I'm
or
suggesting.
ex-member. Oh,
Well, it's such a clear. I wonder if she was even inspired the script.
stop it, D, stop it.
This film is flirting with themes and concepts that are not at all impossible. The fact that we can name very well known people who remind us of different aspects of this character is very interesting. But again, I can't quite fully give the film credit because one, I think that we didn't get enough of the Machiavellian aspects of Emma's character, and two, yeah, they just didn't. They chose not to engage with what would have been a really interesting subject in the film, which is how Black people can be radicalized. And notably, this was a great example to give us a very angry Black woman or mixed race Black woman, and they just didn't take the opportunity, which I found disappointing.
But at the same time, I think to myself that in the hands of the people involved in this film, would they have the
Mm,
range to truly handle that properly? And that could have gone really off the rails.
that's true, and then we would have been dragging them for filth. So.
I mean, I'd have liked to see an attempt, but at the same time, I can see in many, many ways that can go really, really left. Really, really
Mhm.
left.
Okay, so the drama was written and directed by Kristoffer Borgli, who is a Norwegian filmmaker. And in the run up to the film's release, his very problematic article that he wrote about his quote unquote relationship with a 16-year-old girl resurfaced. And with it came a lot of discourse about whether or not this man should even have a career, should we be supporting this film, and the like. I didn't see any of that before I watched the film. And in some ways I'm actually glad I didn't see it, because if I had seen it, I would have had an inherently negative view about this film, and I'm glad that I got to watch it and enjoy the positives of it before getting all the very negative baggage around it. But now that I am aware of it, and I've now seen the film twice as well, it makes me completely recontextualize what this film is actually about. And even though I said that I enjoyed it in the cinema, and I maintain I really did enjoy that experience, um, I don't actually believe that you can separate the art from the artist in many cases, and this happens to be one of them. Because in the letter, he talks about how even though his relationship is technically legal in Norway, it's still socially unacceptable because his friends judged him. He had to climb, in his own words, he had to climb out of his 16-year-old girlfriend's bedroom to
Oh,
avoid her parents when they returned from their holiday, right? And I want to make one point very, very clear. I haven't seen any of his other films, but based on what I have seen about what these films are about, this director is very interested in having a conversation about cancel culture. So now, yes, his other films are about cancel culture. So
of
if we now
course.
marry up the fact that this film, in my view at least, is using a Black woman as a shield to have a conversation about a crime that is actually really perpetuated by white men vast majority of the time. He wants us to have a very serious conversation about judgment and very important, as you alluded to as well. This film deliberately wants us to have a negative view of Rachel, which I still do, by the way. But the film wants us to judge the people who are doing the majority of the judging, right? This director has a very
Clock it.
questionable past.
Clock it.